So you know tomorrow no teaching?
Yes.
Tomorrow? You know there's no teaching tomorrow?
Yeah, no, there's no teaching with you.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It was originally up on the calendar like on the wrong day.
It's next
Oh,
week.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll probably do it.
I don't know if
No, I'm the opposite. I'm telling myself, sorry. So 11:30. And 12:30 is the holiness teaching now. Yeah. Around 11:30. I know it's such a nice thing to do. It's cold.
All right. So we'll start with a recitation of the hundreds of deities of the land of joy. Then we're going to do the mandala offering as a token for requesting the teaching, and at the end, Geshe will lead the way with refuge and bodhicitta as a way of correcting our motivation. So first of all, I'm going to put on the screen the hundreds of deities of the land of joy. Ganden Hagema. Again, it is somewhere here. There it is. Well, I thought of kind of mixing it up, so let's see. Yeah, the actual practice. There you go. Bingo.
From the heart of the Savior, the 100 days of the Shikha, the flowers and the pumpkins,
in the sky, from brothers and there's about 400 years to spread your holy explanation of the holy body ready to see here using drinking water, spraying incenses, lights, scented waters, and so on. Portions of cloth offerings were actually arranged and mentally animated. Offer to you the supreme being of mind. Revealing virtues of body, speech, and the mind, especially those opposite with truth and so have come. I confess each and every one with my heart. You strive for much learning and practicing this degenerate age and may of freedoms and righteousness.
I abandon the able because with sincerity, rejoice in your sensibility. Perfect the pure, holy Guru, with the heart of wisdom and compassion, inspire the Dharma path. Please that all the lane of the founders in the Dharma, on the receptacle of those who execute exactly as they need. May God, whatever wide virtue I have collected, benefit the teachings and all tracks my regular beings. And in particular, may it cause the essence of perfect pure Lord's Mantra's teachings to shine forever. May we meet the teachings of the victorious one who loved the Lord's Mantra, great in morality of an ended the all way of life, was ages to the extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious one, and accomplished the result of the stages of degree, bliss, and emptiness. Nime se we che 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 we si, che me che we wamo jangaya, ula ju se so we na, gaji ge we so gen sum ka pa, lo son cha we sha so wa de. Nime se we che 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 we si, che me che we wamo jangaya, ula ju se so we na, gaji ge we so gen sum ka pa, lo son cha we sha so wa.
Rana mendra laga niyataya me Sanji chedan soji chano la chancho pardu dani kyausun Dagi shishi jibin chodum ji dralam peshi sanji drupara sho Sanji chedan soji chano la chancho pardu dani kyausun Sonam ji dralam peshi sanji drupara sho Sanji chedan soji chano la chancho pardu dani kyausun Dagi shishi jibin sonam ji dralam sanji drupara sho Kanki tuzi nizoni tawa tamji pambi chere tambi chun tenje kodam jela chanze lo. Good morning, everyone. Kazinti 참나는 로사들. 양버름지 샬리 양 템바탐지 주지 람기 체시바 나이 라마나 시손데. 책디 제지 체와이 노세지. 야. 이거 손을 던지 당관지 제지 체와세 디칸트기.
So we're going to go back to the text and pick up from the point that we left in the previous session. So we've been looking at the presentation of the stairs of the path to enlightenment following Lama Tsongkhapa's middling Lamrim. So the text itself is divided into 4 major points. And out of the 4 major points, we've covered the first one that explained the greatness of the author in order to show that this teaching are of a noble source or authoritative source. So this is what we've covered before. Then in the previous session, we started to look at the second main point, which explains the greatness of this Dhamma in order to engender respect for the teacher and teaching. So we have covered the first point out of the 4 points that are included within the greatness of the Dhamma. So we have covered a point that states that it enables you to see that the teachings of the Buddha are not contradictory. And today we're going to pick up from the second point, which shows that the teachings, that all those instructions are, all those teachings are instruction for practice. So I'm just going to put it on the screen, see where we are in the text.
사실 이거들은 로기랜더라. 단지 실장대 디 템부터 진가면 또 치워서 사실 디
Sorry, just a second. I had it on my screen before. All right, so as we said, we have been looking at showing the greatness of the Dhamma in order to generate respect for the instructions. We've covered the greatness of understanding the teachings as without contradiction, and today we're going to pick up on the greatness of the Buddha's teachings occurring to you as instructions.
Yes.
So it's in page 8.
어디다 대들다 가서 지단 템바 탐진 가면 또 출때 지단 개위 템발이야 아니 롱 템발다 또비 템비 니유비 나니 아니 롱 템발이야 롱 데누숨 드나 롱 데누숨 타파체나다 아니 베난 산지 랑기 송래야 아니 포디 갸하지 간지 아니 전부 개트 시동선는다 디기디 탐지로기 땅가와 메바 아니 디 탐지로 땅가와 메바 아니 주비실람 캐시버지
Sorry, we had a brush turkey that entered the gompa, so we just had to chase it out. So, in looking at the 4 points that show the greatness of the Lamrim tradition, the first point that we've covered in the previous session explained how when you study this tradition, you see that the teachings of the victor are not contradictory, they are without contradiction. So, in general, the teachings of the victor, the teachings of the Buddha are of 2 types. There are teachings as scriptures and teachings as realizations. So first of all, with the teachings as scriptures, there are different ways of classifying the teachings that the Buddha gave. For example, the Buddha gave, the teachings of the Buddha are classified into the 3 pitakas, the 3 baskets of teachings. And in the way that they're arranged in the Tibetan tradition, there are more than 100 volumes containing those teachings pertaining to the 3 pitakas. And they contain 84,000 discourses that the Buddha gave. So when you then look at the presentation of the Lamrim, you can see that this vast volume of literature is without contradictions.
람기 rumba chansan toyewe inza ani keu chungi kamda meba sambale tembegi ani chusul chigi ngore ani keu ringi kamda meba sambale tene chusul chigi keu chimbugi kamda meba sambale tene chusul chigi ngondi ta di keu sosu kamda meba sambale mendrawa yaba nanshi gi tedan tyuni ani tabri song digi pichi hop dewa ina 디스음 가와 코나 임비 소르지 통대지 인거를 있느냐 오늘 자네게 비례야지 남냥수 랭인지기 랭싱인지기 때문에 아니 주실람도 키워서야지 용고레스 라
So then when you look at the teachings that the Buddha gave, they're arranged in the presentation of the practitioners of the three scopes. So the Buddha taught the three scopes, and he gave complete sets of teachings pertaining to the three scopes. So in relation to the disposition of a small scope practitioner, the Buddha taught the Dhamma to be practiced. In relation to those of the disposition of a medium scope practitioner, the Buddha gave Dhamma teaching. In relation to those of the disposition of a great scope practitioner, the Buddha gave sets of teachings. So in that way, the Buddha gave teachings on the steps of the path of the three scopes being in a way that accords with their individual dispositions. For each one of those dispositions, the Buddha gave a corresponding set of Dhamma teaching. So then when you don't look at it like that, when you just look at the teaching in a really rough manner, it might seem to you seemingly that there are contradictions in the teachings of the Buddha. However, the Buddha gave those teachings in a way that accord with the dispositions of practitioners. And then when you take it up as an individual and you train your mind in the steps of the path that lead to the state of enlightenment, actually, you can see that this presentation is without contradiction.
아니 원토 하다 미 공방 토야디 아니 개체슈진다 송여라스 다 기운 링kal야 원토 하다 미 공방디 아니 코비기 네급지긴바 데참라야 아니지 아니 펜도메바 아니 델갸체바 아니지 코비 동하게 트비기 아니 타바토지기 람지 다 타바참 기브 침보가 되는 타바참 지 란치고 지 대외 마벤바 섬자 탐지기 대전에 명이 송은디 아니 탐진기비 공부스 또 송은디게 아니 탈두거나 탐진기비 공부 들거나 타와드니기 삼발에 네버도 되고 타와드니기 삼바 비기비에 지람 아니 지 저번양의 천대지 용해라야 때 아니 하다미 공부한디 덴지 땡지 마토나 자님 제투금에 인자 아니 지가 직된 것도 요거봐 아니 강가로 내가 청구해 봐 어딘지 아니 삼싱인지기 색통인지기 아니 때문에 디 디용거레스 디자 페나 트비질람 케르슬람 트비지 페두스 자르스 페나 아니 리 트비지 진간이야 잘라장 초 찍는 태운디 초시가로 그게 자용이지 여러 와서 디난싱기 페나 아니지 당간주 람름 공원디게 고참로 아니 생이 된수 아직 간라지려야 아니지 마 샤금 채와이네야 디탐제기 nen가디 아니 로라츠 아니 수수로래야 차트웨지 전화다 냠바탐지 주질람디 켈시와 세야디 디차고레스
So then, when you look at, for example, the mentality of a small scope being, the way that they think, their type of mentality considers the attainment of a pleasant state of existence, a high state of rebirth as a human being or as a god to be the most important thing to them. This is the way that a small scope practitioner would think. Then a medium scope practitioner would see that attaining a high status rebirth as a human being or as a god is limited. Just to attain that is not enough. It is a temporary state. it is an occasional, a temporary state, and it's not enough. So they would aim at, and they would say that if they just attain that, there would be not much benefit in being so limited. So they would look at the suffering of cyclic existence, and thereby will generate the wish to emerge from that state, to live cyclic existence and attain the state of liberation. And then another type of practitioner would say that if they would just attain the state of liberation, they would attain their own purpose alone, and not finding that sufficient, one's own welfare alone, they will aim at attaining the state of omniscience, the state of a Buddha, for the sake of all sentient beings. Liberation for them would not be enough. So when you look at it like that, then you consider the steps of the path of the small, the medium, and the great scope are arranged in a particular fashion. So the steps of the path of the great scope being is dependent upon the medium scope, in a sense that without the intention definitely merge from cyclic existence, they will not be able to do states of the path. So they definitely need to have that. And in order to develop that intention, definitely merge, definitely to live cyclic existence, they need to do it on the basis of a pleasant state of rebirth, a pleasurable state of rebirth in a high state of rebirth, without making sure that there is a succession of those good bases that one can work with. Good bases in the sense that a rebirth in a high state of existence, it would be not possible to develop that determination to emerge, and not be possible to then use that in order to develop the states of the path of those of the great scope. So in that sense, each one of those states of the path of the latter stages depend upon the earlier stages. So when you then look at it like that, when you think about it like that, you come to see that it is like if you were to draw a square shape. Well, now, if you take a square patch of cloth and you pull one side, then all the other sides will be pulled together with it, right? So it will affect all the other sides. You won't be able to remove one side or to pull one side without affecting the other sides of that square. So similarly, when you look at the steps of the path of these three scopes, you can see how the latter ones depend upon the early ones. So you cannot really pull the early ones without affecting the latter ones. So in that sense, you then look at the steps of the path of the great scope beings. In your meditation on the Lamrim, you're doing glance meditation, in which you account for all the different stages along the path to enlightenment, right? From the small scope, then the medium scope, and the great scope. So if you can do that in your glance meditation on the steps of the path, account for all of them, make all of them appear in your mind, then you're doing a meditation, proper meditation on the steps of the path. In that sense, you're taking all those different corners or sides of that square that leads to the state of enlightenment and bringing it on into your practice of the steps of the path.
What did it? These are Tsultrim Keshiba. Tangai Lama Slandi Kanji, the Tindrich Godas Pena, and Jamdro, and Jamdro do Sma Shagum Chiundigi, and it gave you set up, then it gives you Drotsu Tolayaki, and it gives you Drotsu, and it gave you number Sungutoni, gives you the song to 600 down, and it gives Sungi Lam Yamlingi, Rimba Chansanji, Chansanji Mena, and it self debut gave you Tony, gives you Chik, Sawanimida, and it Lola. 가서 다지 초점 용 초를 마도 지 양다바지 찬상지 용무스 거는 거스.
So then we spoke of bringing those elements, what is to be accomplished, into the steps of the path. So there's certainly need them right from the very beginning of relying upon a teacher, right? So, for example, when you perform the glance meditation and you get to the point in which you go for refuge, so you do a glance meditation on you're going for refuge, you visualize the objects of refuge in the space in front of you, then you contemplate the objects of refuge, you contemplate the manner, the way of going for refuge, and so forth. So you do this glance meditation in the framework of the steps of the path to enlightenment. Now, if you don't meditate on the steps of the path to enlightenment of the three scopes being, you will do some meditation on refuge at this point in your meditation, but it will be just partial. You will include some partial points in going for refuge, but it will be an incomplete meditation on refuge.
다비스 딘도이사 단니바 소르 탐제 당가도 체비 체반데스 강이야 쇼치만나마 냠네기 네메비 시추스 제시 냠네기 네 힘비기 된된비 맹가 수도 여보 거네 담비 취랑라 셰바데 디비치 로로바 니여반 짐바네스 지마메비 도지타 온딩기 텐줄로 그버치미티 케기지스 자원님 딘디다 고닝 마레스 대달라 난기 템베데비 치 과제 쌈쩌고시 니비 칙순 짐비 최고의 내기 들어서 소버 시버 자고스 딘지 삼바인다 아니 최저의 파자는 최고의 내사가 여버디 아니 신고그리스.
So let's look at the way that Lamrim Tsongkhapa explains that. Now, the greatness of the Buddha's teachings occurring to you as instructions begin with the first one, the distinction of pure and impure manners of comprehending. Anyone construing the great scriptures to be explanatory Dhamma that do not contain the points of practice, who thinks that guidance indicating the meaning of the essential points of practice exists separately from them, and holds that even in the Holy Dhamma, the explanatory and accomplishing, practicing teachings are found in different places, will create an obstacle for the arising of deep respect for the immaculate sutras and tantras, as well as the treatises clarifying their intention. You should be aware that karmic obstruction of abandoning the Dhamma is accumulated by despising them, saying that they only outline external knowledge without presenting the inner meaning. So if you do hold those explanatory teachings and what you practice to be different things, as if you practice, or as if you study one thing on one side, but then when you put into practice, or when you go to practice, you do something else, then not only in actual fact, you will not be practicing the Dhamma. On top of that, you will accrue a karmic action that is called an action of abandoning the Dhamma.
인자 공기 송디 먼저 담나도 거야디 먼저 디 송디 담나도 막거나 공 먼저 캡템보 레스 랍데바이네 데바이네야 아니 캡템보 차투 말았더라 공기 송디 담나도 거나 캡템보 차고래 송디 담나도 막거나 캡템보 아니 지바이네야 전 캡템보 아니 차투요 말았어 다 공기 송 빼나 다 단지 쉬대 다 마음부 쉬어져리 뒷난 빼나 아니 빼나 개통 받다고 지기 까 개통 받다고디 담나도 코야래야 까 개통 비기 저셔 쪼디 아니 삼미 람기름 받다 갸치가 람기름 뭐 또 개디 다 저셔 쪼친 다 대요레스 로 딘자 다디 빼나 간지 개통 받아야 갑도 제바이나 tenju ngomba toba geji rumbati kandras ma sungu yometi pen ngada ngada ji zaw ni ko to marwas din za da di go ma ji ten jung on do je ta la ya ji zun chamong go bi so ten jung on do je ta je chi ni ani tel ten ka je to bi ka la ya ten jung on do je je rumba di kandas ting gi yemen changzang ji ko to ga ji yung gi yen za ani pen on do je ta di ka je to ma dam nga to che wi gi ta yang la ta chi nan zo la ya gyur go ras cha go ras.
So we rely upon the Buddha, and when we go for refuge, we see the Buddha as the teacher. Particularly, the Buddha taught us the refuge. The Buddha is the teacher of refuge. So in that sense, the Buddha is the teacher of refuge. The Buddha is the teacher of Dhamma. The Buddha is the teacher of instructions for practice. Without understanding the instructions for practice as taught by the Buddha, how will the Buddha will be a teacher of refuge for us? We might say that the Buddha is a teacher of refuge, but without understanding the instructions taught by the Buddha, it's not that the Buddha is actually going to be our teacher of refuge. So for example, when you consider the teachings that the Buddha gave, of the volumes of the teachings that the Buddha gave, some of them are dedicated to the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 8,000 verses. And the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 8,000 verses covers the stages of the path of the profound view, or the stages of the profound path, and the stages of the vast and extensive conduct. Those areas are covered by this sutra. These are the main subject matter of this sutra. But then when you pick up this sutra and read it, Geshe says that he at least find it very difficult to understand what the Buddha taught in that sutra. So then he refers to Maitreya's ornament for clear realization, the ornament for clear realization, which explains clearly what the Buddha taught in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 8,000 verses. So then through looking at Maitreya's teachings, you can see how the Buddha completely taught in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 8,000 verses the steps of the path of the vast and extensive and the profound. Now, in that sense, Maitreya's treatise becomes a branch of the Buddha's teachings.
Dinza ani ta shong chenbo ni shong po ding nga la so ba di ne loss chi pi la ya ani de so la de mu ge bi loss chi tam nga chi ta ni nyong ji ki to ni ani chi ka yin zang ko to ni yong tu ya zao ni ni da yo ma li song go da yin ju ro ngan zu gi dong bi song dang nga de che ba la ya ngebar de shong chenbo la ya tu ko res ro shong chenme nang lo la ya ani chi do gi khong do la tu di gi gyab de ribi lam ma ani ten la phab che ni ani do yi gong den di ten la phab yo ros di pe ani jamba thar chi ba che wa na di jamba thar chi ba che wa na ani ten bi song di ta ngone thani gi dam nga du chat tu go res tembe song dangwa de chana ani temba sanji chomden de ta ngone gi kyak tembo senden jin ba de semti ni ngi ba ni res ta dinni na di tembi gi che yang da wa yin ba ani semti ni ngi ba ni de da ani che tsujin de che ta yung yo ras di ma do tembe song dangwa ma ko par do ani temba yang da chi tong tu ma ras temba yang da jin tong ma do na tembi gi temba dia ani 지 다 양다레세디 카츠마도 셈티닝 이번 예지 요마로스
So then the Buddha, so when we look at the teaching stuff we study the 5 classics, the 5 great philosophical systems. And if you think that apart from those 5 great philosophical systems and then the instructions or the commentary stuff were composed on that basis. There is a set of instruction that I can use, and this is what I need to practice, right? Something that is separate or different than those 5 classics, then there's not much that you would be able to accomplish. There's not much for you that you'd be able to practice. So we certainly need the study of the teachings that are contained in those 5 great classics, which are sourced in sutra, right? So the 5 classics depend upon the teachings that were given in the sutra, and we come to determine them through means of logic. And if we take it up like that, then we completely study, we completely train our mind in those teachings of the Buddha. And as such, we can see that it becomes for us the instructions for practice. And when you then see that, when you through that see that these are for you the instructions for practice, then you see that really the Buddha was for you the teacher of refuge. And as such, you will have a correct seeing, a correct purview of the Buddha as being the teacher, and also your practice being a correct practice. Without studying it in this manner, thank you. Without studying in this manner, we might say that the Buddha is a perfect teacher, the Buddha is a perfect teacher of refuge, the Buddha taught perfect refuge and so forth, but that would be only saying that. That would be a mere lip service without really based on seeing that the instructions that the teacher, that the Buddha gave are instructions for practice.
어디에 딘자 아니 달리는 디소라 주만매빈 도교장 공리 텐줄로 거버치고 기비 개그랬다. 라 아니 지 땅안 저기 됐으기라다. 아니 딘디 쇼 쳔몰이야 퇴섬 지야기다. 아니 로드 기기요 말이 아니 초징 소소소로야 지 가서다. 아니 당일 입이 레로세드레다. 안치 규전 매상으로 나도 규전 당금만에 삼성로지 다 딘디 마모 쇼지게 아니 소소소래 개치여러서 다 규전 빼나 규전 담만다세디 규전 담만다세디 규전 담바 규전디 피 규전 그거는 주비자비 규전지 수칸이요 말했어 규전도 소소소 땡진 규전도 콘 규이랑진 진진자 아니 겐지는 때니 중국인자 아니 소소소 소고야지 그러나 그냥 세그라당 이직을 당 두만 이래도 보를 당 두만 겨가도 당 게임랑 당 두만 세디 디소소 마투바레 마토 디지 아니 가서 딱봐 아니 소소든 잘돼야 딘디기 내주제 최고 말자 다 간진 안주 미 상로 나올라야 도저 참말로 아니 소소 로종 치야다 최치야기 아니 가게 임바디 모만 트어지니 디소베 아니 딜레타지 계제 지온디 먼저 메시지 나올라야 아니 뒤전 당야지 용구요 말했어 들어.
So in Lama Tsongkhapa's text, one of the lines that we read through in the passage said, you will let's see where we'll pick it up. It's a very, very long line. It says, you will create an obstacle for the rising of deep respect for the immaculate sutras and tantras, as well as treatises clarifying their intention, right? So if you, it's quite hard to read that without reading what came before. So it says, anyone construing the great scriptures to be explanatory Dhamma that do not contain the points of practice, who thinks that the guidance indicating the meaning of the essential points of practice exists separately from them and holds that even in the holy Dhamma, the explanatory and accomplishing teachings are found in different places, will create obstacle for the rising of deep respect for the immaculate sutras and tantras. So we do create obstacles for ourselves, for hindrances for ourselves. Like, for example, laziness is one of the hindrances. So we are lazy. We think that we don't have the time to study and practice, or we think that we don't have enough time to do that. So this is an obstacle. This is a hindrance for us for study and practice. But when we claim that we don't have the time or we don't have enough time, we build up this impression that time is something that exists by itself, as if there is like an independent lump of time that we don't have, or that we don't have enough of it. But of course, that notion of time doesn't exist. We can make time, we can make the time to do it. After all, time is something that is impermanent. It changes from moment to moment, right? So it is subject to change. It is conditioned by causes and conditions. So therefore, we can contribute to the conditions that will allow us to have enough time to study and practice. So we come up with different reasons, right? So I cannot do it. I don't have enough time. I cannot really set aside things that I really need to do. I have family member, I have my partner, I have my job, I have this to do or the other thing to do. So we come up with those different reasons why we don't have enough time to do it. And whatever you say kind of might seem for you to be a valid argument, but really, when you think about it in the great scheme of things, when you step back from the arguments that you start building up in your mind, you come to see that your attitude basically is thinking that there are things that are far more important than studying and practicing. If you arrange your priorities in this way, in that there are things that for you are much more important than study and practice, you will not make time to do it. You will not make enough time to do it. So if you form your own side, do not make sure that there are certain things that you give up. At some point, later on down the track, you'll have to, without having the freedom or the power to choose for yourself. You'll have to do it at the end. Now, Geshe said that he still considers the possibility that whatever he says here is just boasting, right? After all, the only thing that he did in his life was to study the Dharma, or study this scriptural system. He hadn't done other things. So, claiming it in the way, or saying it in the way that he's just said it now, maybe it's just too boastful. All right, so we have tea today. So I have verses for offering the tea. We have verses for everything, basically. So open the prayers. For those of you at home who have tea or another drink, then we can dedicate it together. So let's look at the dedication verse. There it is. Cheers. Very delicious tea. If it was coffee, it was even better, but had it been coffee. Oh, we should have an espresso machine just here.
Just for you.
Yeah, just for me.
Tevdadini denatande namla mülle damba chon jonchembo nam yimus. Tangonere sira tangan suchi tavan deban namji 아니 대한지 대버침비 취연되번 남나야 더 담가 약수유디 쇼침부 되기들에 마도지 근데 쇼침부를 봐 술득까지지 아니 가서 되지 간주 장기 치지기 아니 만조야 더 담가 가부 베레스로.
So then in continuing with Lama Tsongkhapa's text, we read up until this section, all right. And then it says, hence, for those who want liberation, the infallible supreme instructions are indeed the great scriptures. So if you are intent on liberation and putting into practice a genuine practice that will lead you to the state of liberation, you need to rely upon those great texts, the classics. If you think that there are instructions that are found somewhere else apart from that, then you're deluding yourself.
담비 촉도 종 대점나 때니 님미니베스 비길이야 아니 지 칼도 빼나다 지까지 또 못다올래야 아니 제치니 아니 산지게 지 담가 창장디 다 고통 말았다 디 공제질이야 디 공제질이야 니버 뜨고 고글 마도 마도바 님미니베게 갑들이야 담비 맹가를 때니 다지 라마 콤비 맹가 비다 맹가가 쪼디 아니 종치미기다 리시도 소리스 텔라된 대달랑 니버자고 차우냠도 맹가 초급의 인기스 종 남니 치게 치게 접었음 임비 님부 메라 맹가 남는 난기 된때문에 초구냠도 무서워스.
Then it says, nevertheless, it is possible that due to poor intelligence and the like, you cannot reach certainty through relying on these scriptures only as supreme advice. So you get to look at texts that the Buddha taught, or sutras that the Buddha taught, such as the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 8,000 verses. And it is possible that you might not have enough courage to take up the study of something like that, or that your mind would not be as extensive as needed, or that your knowledge will be insufficient to understand what this sutra says. So if that is the case, then you can rely upon treatises that explain the meaning of the Buddha's instructions. So those teachings, the treatises that explain, that comment on the intention of the Buddha, are explained to you by spiritual teachers, and they come together with instructions for practice. So it says, nevertheless, it is possible that due to poor intelligence and the like, you cannot reach certainty through relying on these scriptures only as supreme advice. Therefore, you should seek certainty with respect to them, thinking, I will seek certainty with respect to them by relying on the excellent instructions. But you should not think that the great scriptures do not contain the heart of the matter, because they only outline external knowledge, while the instructions are supreme because they present the inner meaning.
Bebum langti samshila neba nyevala miseki sonrab tamji daman koalas ser shebatans.
Now, looking at the next point in this section, point B reads how all the Buddha's teachings present themselves to you as useful instructions. The great yogi Janchuk Rinchen said, someone who has reached certainty about a handy little volume cannot be said to know all the topics of instructions, whereas this can be said about someone who understands all of the scriptures as instructions.
Nanjin tsuba sedi sonrab tamche ki 송르 탐지기 가서다 gondens는도 딜이야 지 고토여바지 기여바지 고레 송거다 된다 조들이다 난친 수세디 난친 세디 난기 내가 징이 최로지리 라 마상 야부 진바는 빼자바나 마상 라 마상지 마상 존된 다 마상 야부 진바나 다비 다지 갸라니 첸 다지 부숨 쏘고 쉬서러스 드네야 나온 존디게 아닌 좀 내len체사 기규르테사 드네 츠사마 쉬서러스 쉬다디시 아니 드네야 소디 비기 탑상리 드네 지 칼라사사 드네 니강리 드네 마상 빼지 남견된 지 최래의 등일용이 야부지만은 드네 지 캄바 약슈디 아니 총강스 디나노라야지 아니 가진트 디소리 고손투데요 소바드니 아니 야슈주 아니 뒤치 동바 칸게 디나나 페지 아니 베절로야 곰게야 다두 시문디 다지 난기 엔 림바 창장디 아니 술 주요레슬라나 난기 레가칭이 요 자모송이 다디 나노레 카리여 참을 신고라스 디난신로지 담가 탐지 랑아지 아니 깜주 셈기 때문에 담가니 젠 간지 치직 류직라야 니드 세동직라야 상기비 탑 때문에 아니 규 갸보다 배사운디 멘치기 참로라야 아니 규여바지 차고 세월다
Looking at this section again, it says, someone will reach certainty about a handy little volume cannot be said to know all the topics of instructions, whereas this can be said about someone who understands all the scriptures as instructions. So when it says someone who has reached a certainty about a handy little volume, Geshe says that just the way that it is expressed in Tibetan refers to having kind of some limited or some portion of inner knowledge. So when you look at kind of that inner knowledge of the working that is done on the inside, it is like, for example, just to use an analogy, if you have someone that, you know, if you have a good, a well set up household, you know, really wealthy family, they might have this big house. So right from the fence around the house, all the way to the entrance to the house, everything will be arranged properly. You enter into the house and you have rooms that are arranged properly, right? So you have places for, you know, to leave your shoes, and a kitchen, and a pantry, and a room for the translator, and a room for, and you know, well, this is what Geshe said, right? I did not make that up. So, and you will have bedrooms and kitchens and dining room and so forth. And then you will also have, you know, in a traditional Tibetan setup, you will also have a temple room, right? So where you will have, you have a room dedicated for your spiritual practice. So you'll have an altar. And you will have a really nice presentation of the of those supports of or representations of body, speech, and mind, which means that you'll have statues and so forth arranged on the stupa, those different things that for us represent the enlightened body, speech, and mind. And then you will also have a place to sit and to do some reading, to do your own study, a place to meditate in that room. And if you work for that household, inside that household, let's say as a cleaner, then you will know very well the layout of the house, and you know how to keep everything tidy. So you're not going to have just a little kind of a responsibility for just a little portion of that house. You'll have to take care of everything, and also to know everything in that house in its entirety. So similarly, when you think of this analogy and apply it to the meaning, then put this text again on the screen. It says, someone who has reached a certainty about a little handy volume cannot said to have to know all the topics for instructions, whereas this can be said about someone who understands all the scriptures as instructions. So that person will then know that all of the scriptures are instructions for practice, beginning right from the beginning, the way to rely properly upon a spiritual teacher, all the way up to the instructions that enabling one to attain the state of Buddhahood in one short lifetime. It depends upon one body. It depends upon instructions found in the Guhya Samaja Tantra. So they will know that all those instructions that range from the beginning all the way to the Guhya Samaja Tantra are instruction for practice for oneself.
Drop ki lomban Geshe yo. Ani kain menging jiki. Ani matsan chembu digi garan la yin su tsawadam pet garan la ya gardens ani metesas pichi yoro taga rangi pe ani yiktsum badrochi. Kansan susu desa de ani namju kimedi that kiwu shuj lechin. Tagarang go kondo isorich. And dindi yoba something that disare samsung Song Cordia in Ingoras that Dili Yan Drochin, Di Nanglo ya Pena, Sanju Tunganjin Droinea, that Mezanchi was a petty Kayu that in the method to Shach and the Pe, and the Pangojil to be Shai Council Sojaras, that Dindigila and Co Cordiabano, Pigitachi, and the Tabzan Yabutina, Levio Mari Desaki with the Temotas, the Legio Martin, Yakanki with Yachim with Leo Diniapi, and the Nan Yakshu Pigi, and Dina Diligent Letugomaras. Din zoro chechini anchi sikchinjung jilaya ani damga chichin tagarang ya ani metsekanzang gokobaina indigyo mares kanji sikchinjung di ani shongchenbula ya jubi taptu ani ngunzimi toni ani shongchenbula ya juktu koyati ani nengares.
So Geshe Sadhguru himself, for example, was born to a simple family. So he comes from a nomadic background, born into a family of nomads. So suppose that he makes his way from being born to a simple family, and he comes across a family that is really wealthy, that has this really big and lavish residence. So first of all, he will enter into the gate or through the gate, and before entering into the house there would be a garden and a nice place to sit in the garden. So not having seen that kind of thing before, Geshe might think that, well, this is enough. I found a place to stay or to sit down. But if you think that this is enough, then you're missing out on what's inside. So suppose that then you make your way from the garden and the pavilion in the garden into the house. And then you come across the bathroom, the toilet or the bathroom. And it seems that if you're really well off, you might have this really big and lavish bathroom that is made of, there are ceramics and marble in the bathroom. Some people arrange flowers and all sorts of things in the bathroom. And Geshe said that suppose coming from his background as a nomad, he would look at that, he will see that for him it might seem to be like a celestial mansion. And he might decide to make that as his residence. That's enough, right? That would be sufficient. But still, if you think about it like that, then you're missing out on the TV room, on the kitchen, the bedrooms and so forth. So you can see how, in just using this analogy, how if you become really complacent or really satisfied with something that's just limited, or just one portion of the big picture, then you make yourself stay pretty limited. So it's not good enough. It's not enough to suffice with just a limited set of instructions, just a few words of instructions. And even if you have a limited instruction, the way that you need to think about it is, this is a method for me to engage in the great text with the great classics, not just think that that's enough for me, I don't need anything else. Even if you have something that for the time being is quite limited, just a few words, think about it. It's, for me, that would be a method for later on engaging with the great texts.
아니 곰갸사 베자타사 소사티 비기 데니나야 지 하장 소소 마임바 착부 마임바 아니 대원이 지 추진 있으면 되나 아니 지에 수고를 잡고 아니 되려야 고소투데 또 자칭 수상 아니 지아 가겐지 수 제베 포티 용조로야 아니 제사요도 진지 대원이 된다 단지 마가덴 다지 아니 and Sancho da kitchen da to samalo da and kot kapkolaya gohej the chago de na tetsamgi ani kitchen buji chago maras 이그날 레니 야부 식대 바이나 아니 샘라이 시디 아니 룰레 티기 samalo da 아니 다 용기어라서라 아니 지 단지 비 예간 친구들 나눠라야 먼저 가야 맹인지 규 맹인지 그때 바이나 지 김도하고 슈저딩네 디나 냥엔도즈라 뇨그라 슈여라스라 어디래 인자다 간지 참아보기 아니 쇼 참아기 춘춘이 지는 용용이 지는 고버 참아지 규여가 차와이나 되니 아니 가와 가려야 아니 땡구여미 가르가르 땡구여미 창상 베디 아니 수술 락비 틸려야 지 아니 잘라 샤바 난신지기 아니 당나도 차트고여서레스 로 딘디지 고레스
So we spoke about this big mansion. So suppose that you still make your way through that house, and at the end you get to the temple room, the Dhamma room. So you have a place to sit, a mattress. It's not too soft and it's not too hard. You can comfortably stay seated on that cushion or mattress for 2 and 3 hours, and you can use that for your meditation or to do some reading, to study a particular text. And in front of you there would be statues and so forth, those things, those items that represent for us the enlightened qualities of body, speech and mind. So in that sense, when you if you make your way through to that temple room and you make use of that for your study and meditation, you come to see that actually that would be the most important place to be in that home. So you had a garden and you have a toilet and bathroom and kitchen and so forth, but really at the end, the thing that will provide you with mental peace and well-being and physical comfort would be that place that you would use for your study and reflection. So, in that temple room, you might also have those texts that will represent the teachings of the Buddha, the extensive, the middling and condensed presentations as given by the Buddha. And this is what you will use for your study and reflection. So if you then take it up like that, right from the beginning, then you might start with a short or small text, but through that you will become familiar with that. You will become more and more familiar with the teachings of the Buddha, to the point in which whatever teachings you're going to think of, you know where to find them within the teachings of the Buddha, where to reach out, where to locate those topics that you're looking for, as if all the teachings of the Buddha were to fit within the palm of your hand. And all of them in that sense would for you become instructions for practice. So aside from that, Geshe also made a comment that it might sound to be really nice to have such a good and extensive house, but it is likely that for those people that live in such big mansions, at the end it creates for them a little bit of headache. right? It's not, there's also some complications when you live in such a big place, taking care of such a big place is not something that is that easy.
Tirida, Dayana, any Nanzu Castle, that you Susu Mazanaya, any the Gavangimile, and Tandigi, and Kalaya, and Chick sending Lama Givisini, Tindigi, and Chick Shalaya, Lamong to garden the Tenich, Chi, and the Jim Zultrim, Kuyula Soba, Kazuski Chick Pilaya, Gidriana, Telaya Chick, same charge in it. And so the Chilao Luni Chiata, some time, Lutanchen, Tindilaya, short Mandroya di, and it Shonchamun Titilaya, this chick to some chair, Kogochon, Garden, Yinza, and the Zolaya chick. Zaunini, Misho Munduslananda, and the Kalzar in a kanji, and the same layer round of a short regic, Zaunin Mundus, in the layer in Yimisha, Kimundus, the Dinza, Tanganzugi, and Tatanji Pesha Nanshinki, Nangi Lega Chingin Telea, Kodawa Menaya, Nangi Champa, Gioba Nanshinki, Nanzu Metzet Nalolaya, and the Sanji, Sora Tamche Lolaya, Gulomba Chetuaina, and that Digoris, right?
We have arrived in this life and depends upon karma that we have created in previous life, and we also have found the circumstance for encountering a spiritual teacher, a virtuous friend. So then when we look at the things around us, we mentioned that big house, big mansion. So you might have a garden outside and really nice arrangements or presentation outside. Similarly, you might be living in an environment that is a really nice and enticing environment. And our idea is to not become attached to that, to give it up, to relinquish that, so that we can study and reflect upon the teachings that the Buddha gave as facilitated to us through the spiritual teacher, through the Lama. So it would be a lie to say that we don't find a nice environment, beautiful gardens and so forth to be enticing. No, we would be pretending as if we don't find that to be comfortable. Yeah, you can say that we still find it to be enticing. We still find it to be attractive, and yet we don't totally buy into it, and we still make time to study and reflect upon the teachings that the Buddha gave as presented to us or facilitated to us through the spiritual teacher. So this is what we're getting at, right? So just like if you live at that big house, at some point you become familiar, you know everything about that house, all the inner arrangement and so forth, you know everything in detail. So similarly, this is what we seek to do with the teachings that the Buddha gave. We want to develop familiarity with the mind, with the entirety of the teachings that the Buddha gave.
And Jochembil Homa, Gomarin Lami Yang, Adishi Dangala, Dento Chigla, Dento Chigdu, Lunga Yisum, Dupu Lape. Ta Shon Tamje Danga to Kowashi Chong Sombatat, Kogobayino, Temba Rumuchi Shani, Che Mandu Lamni, Che Chelu, Shendu Seju Goba Chona, Nova in Sombatar, Yurim Che Mandu Labgan, Che Chelu Ye Meshiba, Che Chendu Chona, Sel Shernis, Jogoba, Namkan, Hashabatar Mago, Nondin the Temban and Jelly, Tembitan Tanya to Shesomba Londo, Temba Nili Mela, Longi Temban, Chill loud limit, Sud Juba, Chelu Tena Papa Yilla, Toby Teman, Tena Papa, Chedder Tena Papa, that Juba in the Ten Judas Joy in the Penata Jubana, Hunla, Tala, Jusa Tembatan, dancing in Jubata, Jusa Gendu Teni, Jusa Gendu Jena, Shagin Juatar, Tursum Ki, Shenshi Tena Pamni, Juban the Shenshi Jub to Kalaro, Tether Gombram Tamale, Young Tuba the Sambali Churi, Sheriff Toba kind of Tini, Gombali Churi, Sheriff Gomba Chai, Gendu Mayindi, Tajuki, Taju said then Gubashin Shisonsus.
Just to read through the remaining of this section. Let's do it together. So we're looking at the section that explains how all the Buddha's teachings present themselves to you as useful instructions. We read through what is taken from the teachings of the great yogi Janchu Rinchen, and now we're going to pick up from this section. We need the kind of understanding that Gompa Rinchen Lama, a disciple of the great elder Atisha, expressed, saying he had ground his body, speech, and mind to dust in a single meditation session on Atisha's instructions, and that thereby the understanding had now arisen in him that all the scriptures are instructions. In the words of the previous Dromtumba, the precious Dromtumba, if after studying the Dhamma, a lot you feel the need to search everywhere for a way of applying the Dhamma, you are mistaken. Likewise, those who study the Dhamma a lot over a long period and completely ignorant as how to practice Dhamma, develop the wish to practice the Dhamma, do not understand and therefore err in the manner described above. As it is said in the Treasure of Knowledge, the Abhidhamma Kosha, the Buddha's holy Dhamma is twofold. Its nature is scripture and realization. In accordance with this statement, there is nothing apart from the scriptural teachings and the realizational teachings. The scriptural teaching is how the Dhamma should be practiced and establishes the manner of accomplishment, while the realizational teachings is what is thus established. Since you practice in accordance with what is to be established, these two act as cause and effect. To give an analogy, when you have a horse race, you first show the horse the course, and after showing it, the race there is similar. It would be ridiculous to show it a course and then have the race elsewhere. When it comes to accomplishments, how could it be appropriate to accomplish something after having determined something else through listening and reflecting? That is also expressed in the stages of meditation, Kamalashila's stage. So in the third stage of meditation, it says, whatever has been realized by the wisdoms arising from listening and reflecting is precisely what should be cultivated by means of the wisdom arising from meditation. Just like a horse runs along a course, it has been shown.
Tak dindi kode dindi ita kavkola yunguyore mimambule yunguyore da di khani kyen shobare islaundi kan lavadi karilaya pengdu di bi kabdu laya jik sosu semlayo jarmatu bigi ani kyung tone ani labgyuda gomgi soso kode dindi yunguyores.
It might sometimes seem to us that what is taught and what is practiced are two different things, as if you study one thing, but then when you meditate or when you put it into practice, you need to do something else. You might get that mistaken impression because when you study something, you might not see the benefit of applying it to your mind. If you don't see how you will get a benefit from applying the teachings to your mind, you might have the impression that at the end what you put into practice is not that, it is something else.
And it's in digging on a jig mixing and a church jambaina. Any that Chetan tested the pensive model and Kalaka operations. Captulias, social pandy, the carborations. Kansana chugi migi give chung lam koran sound down. Give a chima pendula mini. Drugo as random mother, set ditchable as sound dani and chudi and 당나도 때문도 왔다로 간지.
And also sometimes we need to look at the approach that we take when we study and practice. Sometimes whatever we do in terms of a spiritual practice, our orientation, our main orientation is what we can get from that in this life. So we want to make this life happier, more comfortable, more pleasant, and that is the main orientation of our spiritual practice of the Dhamma. And when we practice like that, it's still possible that we do get benefit from that in terms of this life, but it's still quite hard to do it in this way, because when you look at the way that the teachings are arranged, beginning with the steps of the path, which are shared with those of the small scope, the orientation is future lifetimes. Right? The main purpose is not this life. It begins with looking at what you get from that in terms of future lives. Attaining, for example, on that basis, a pleasant state of rebirth or in a high state of existence. So the orientation, the main focus, the priority is not this life, but future lifetimes. So it is possible that you might practice in keeping your priority to be this life. However, that is not the intended meaning.
간지 Geshe dinza chu kang jamba di zu di ani rangi loto keyagi tabji imbada ani sevu shores ro loto kajus ketu ti chogita ani sendelaina pengol kewachimalaina pengol shenlaina pengolista.
So we might be studying and practicing with the orientation that focuses on this life. However, if we change our priorities and start to look at it in terms of what it will bring to us in future lifetimes, right? So in that sense, our orientation will change, then your scope will become greater. You'll have a far-reaching goal, or more, at least in comparison with focusing on this life, would be a greater goal, more far-reaching. So if you expand your mind in this way, not only will contribute, of course, to future life, but also it will make you have a broader mind in this way, in this life. It will contribute to whatever you do in this life. So you yourself will get benefit from having a mind that is more vast, more extensive, more far-reaching. Not only it will be beneficial for yourself, it will also be beneficial to others. It will benefit this life, it will benefit future lives, it will benefit you, it will benefit others. You will become more determined, you will become more courageous in the spiritual practice that you undertake. And if you become more determined, more courageous in your spiritual practice, again, it will be helpful in terms of future lives. It will also be helpful in terms of future lives because you will have a broader perspective and you will be able to benefit yourself and benefit others.
다 간지 아니 짐발라 소베 수tum 소야라 소바 직진소 파신 주기 냠네 용수 줘봐 디 아니 셔럽 기비 된드레스 간지 남주 배야기 된 랑기 남주 배야기 된 남주 배투바이나 아니 뉴몬비 샹원 교마레 아니 간지 삼로 마랑위 아니 초스 자원님 농구 말았다 디 마모나 아니 차와양타바 차발랍치 Shantideva
said in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life at the beginning of the Wisdom chapter, the 9th chapter, all these branches were taught for the sake of generating wisdom. So in his Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, before the 9th chapter, he taught generosity and ethics and so forth, the perfections of bodhisattvas. And when he got to the chapter on wisdom, he said that all of them were for the sake of generating wisdom, which means that we want to generate wisdom, intelligence. And if we give rise to wisdom, to intelligence, our mind does not fall under the control of the afflictive states of mind. We do not fall prey to afflictive states of mind, and thereby our behavior, whatever we do, becomes correct. So we will leave the text here for now. Before we do that, so Paul asked what text are we following? So we're following the middling presentation of Lama Tsongkhapa's stages, Lama Tsongkhapa's presentation of the steps of the path to enlightenment, the middling Lamrim. Now, we have an early translation that was provided by the FPMT to this text, but it is now the last stages of being made into a book. And because it is copyrighted as a book, we cannot really distribute the text. So hopefully the book will come out in the next few weeks or months, so people could get a copy of the book. And I think that also there has been quite a lot of revisions and corrections in terms of at least semantics of the translation. So it's going to be a good book. So for the time being, we're just showing the text on the screen here at the Gompa, but also to the people that follow the teaching at home. So thank you very much. We'll leave it here for now. Before we do that, just a reminder that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is giving teachings online this weekend. So it's going to be tomorrow and the day after, 12:30 Eastern time. You can look at the Dalai Lama's, His Holiness the Dalai Lama's website, www.dalailama.com, to find more details about how to connect and listen to the teachings. So thank you. We'll leave it here for now. I'll put the dedication verses on the screen if I find them. Just a second. Here they are. Rinpoche make panan ke gyochi ke panyamba me paya konde kondu dewa shu nyodo da lama sangye jugune doa chikama te salango pa shu kowe shingamji kandan dewa magun juni chere suwan tenzin gyatso Shabe Sende Bardo Tenguruchi Chamjin Jangun Yawe Tenjin Gyumpe Wengun Sotobozi Chozung Gowe Remondu Panda Sotu Shingon Thank you. See you next week. Maybe.
Okay, sir.
Maybe. So what time tomorrow? No, okay. I can sleep in.
Just come at 12:30.
No, the whole shebang tomorrow.
9:30.
It's okay.
10:30. Yeah. The children when you need to see they were the double and show it is
Okay.
double anyway.
No, let me go.
Yeah.
So Geshe this afternoon? What time? Is it coming?
Yes, maybe 4.
We'll adjust.
So
that.
this
Yeah, okay.
4 is okay.
For set,
p.m.
the show set up?
Ah.
For set up, yeah, for, is this to help Geshe to show what to do?
Yeah.
Offerings,
Yeah.
for offerings? Okay, everybody? The new everybody?
You're not talking to me then?
Yeah, we need, okay, 4 o'clock. Thank you, Geshe.
See you.
I'm not clear about.
Okay, so Sonny's going to come and clean now because he's had a very busy schedule for today for a whole day long workshop. So he'll clean, he'll do the cleaning, and then Geshe said 4 o'clock, but maybe some of us can come a bit earlier and make sure it's all clean up here. So